celebrating everything the Coastal Bend has to offer.
This is a great place to live, so let's talk about it.
Get the scoop on the latest trends, popular fashions, hottest music, exciting events, and so much more.
Come on, let's have some fun.
This is Coastal Living on KZTV.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Coastal Living, the at-home edition. We hope you're all doing well. If you are still practicing social distancing, if you're still home from work, we do hope that you are taking care of yourself physically and emotionally and doing everything you need to do to maintain your sanity, if you will, during this interesting time. We also have something to celebrate, or at least to recognize. It is Memorial Day today, and although we hope everyone had a fun weekend with their families and friends, we want to remind you guys that, although many of us are able to enjoy an extra day off because of this national holiday, we have to recognize the true meaning of Memorial Day, which is to remember the men and women who have died while protecting our country. And there's so many unique ways, I guess you could say, to remember those fallen soldiers. And I'm curious, Jocelyn, what do you have planned to celebrate those soldiers today?
Well, Clarissa, I'm going to start by saying happy Memorial Day. As a lot of us were out on the island this weekend, at our beaches or out on the water, there's so many different ways to celebrate those lives of those who fought and protected our country. And one way that I'm going to do that today is having a moment of silence, and especially by praying for their families, because no matter when this happened to them, I know it's a very, very difficult time, but hey, why not celebrate their lives today? And another great way too is to have a glass of wine, which I'm definitely going to do. Do you want to know why?
Why?
National Wine Day. Just such a coincidence that today is National Wine Day. So for those of you that are going to remember the lives of our fallen soldiers, why not have a glass of wine in their remembrance? What about you, Clarissa?
I love it. I love that you mentioned just, sitting in silence or saying a prayer for the families and for the lost souls, because sometimes things like this can stress us out. We don't need to make it complicated. There isn't a workbook telling us how we can and cannot recognize these people that fought for our freedom, right? So it can be something as simple as just meditating, or while you are having a glass of wine, thinking about putting yourself in those shoes of those soldiers that put their lives on the line for us, and considering how the family members of those soldiers may be feeling today. So I love that you mentioned just offering up a prayer or sitting down and sort of meditating on this day while you enjoy a glass of wine, enjoying National Wine Day. And again, if you have a family member that lost someone, you can reach out to them. You can visit a cemetery. You can leave flowers. There's so many different ways. One way is to just educate your kids, educate your family or yourself on what Memorial Day really means. So I was lucky enough to visit with a local veteran to learn more about what Memorial Day means, not only to him, but how we can properly observe the fallen soldiers that fought for our freedom. Check it out. Now, in observance of Memorial Day, we wanted to sit down with a special individual here to share his achievements and his take on what Memorial Day means to him. Please welcome Martin Longoria. He is Army retired, and we thank you so much for your service, sir. Thank you for joining me today.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome.
Tell me a little bit about yourself before we get started.
I'm Army retired. I spent 28 years in the Army. I spent about the first 9 enlisted, and then I switched over to be an officer. So it's been a go ever since, working on my 5th year of retirement. So I'm still learning what it is to be a civilian. You can say.
I'm sure I think we're all learning what it's like to be civilians in this constantly changing world that we live in. Now, as a veteran, what does Memorial Day mean to you?
Memorial Day to me means, honoring and remembering those men and women that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And also, kind of reflecting the things that we have, the freedoms that we enjoy is because of them and the sacrifice that they gave in order for us to enjoy those freedoms.
Absolutely. And you yourself are a Purple Heart recipient, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how you earned that.
I was wounded in Iraq in November 2003 by an IED. So I took some shrapnel to the right side of my truck and to the right side of my body. So it's been a struggle learning to cope with it. I have my aches and my pains like all veterans do that have wounds, but not just the wounds from war, but the wounds that are inside. those are other wounds too that veterans go through and are dealing with.
So true. It makes me emotional thinking about it because, as much as we try to say thank you for your service when we see a veteran in public, you can never thank a veteran enough, I don't think, for the sacrifices that you've made, and it's something you deal with every day. And we also want to recognize the family of those that have lost their lives for our country. Tell me a little bit about what a Gold Star mother is.
A Gold Star mother is, either their son or their daughter was killed in combat.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it just kind of, they're identified as those parents or individuals that lost a loved one. And, they're the ones that, one of the reasons that Memorial Day is there, but we here we also make it a point to recognize the families, those Gold Star families, those Gold Star mothers that even though their son or daughter paid the ultimate sacrifice, we want to let them know that they're not forgotten and they will not be forgotten. And just to share those memories with them is a great honor. It is. Because the years go by, but as the years go by, they get older. But just to let them know that, hey, we still have your son or daughter in our prayers and in our hearts, and they're not forgotten.
Definitely. And that's just one of the many ways that we can observe Memorial Day. Many people take this time to spend with their families and enjoy a longer weekend. However, we have to remember the root of this day is to acknowledge not only the ones that have lost their lives for our sake, but the families who have sacrificed their loved ones as well. What are some ways that you like to observe Memorial Day, and what do you recommend for our viewers to do?
I guess if you do know a Gold Star family or a Gold Star parent, you want to reflect on the memories of that individual, the things they did, the sacrifices for their country, and just letting them know that, hey, even though they're not here, they're in our prayers and in their hearts, and just remembering the things they did when they were here. I make it a point to go out to the Coastal Bend Veteran State Cemetery and place flags on those veterans that I know that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those things where, everybody observes it in a different way, but that's the way that I find it to honor those veterans. When I was in Iraq, we lost three soldiers, and it's even the time has passed, but in my mind, I take that time just to reflect and to know, hey, you're in a better place, but I still haven't forgotten you, buddy. So,
amen. And I'm sure they're certainly with you in spirit. We want to thank you again for your service, for the sacrifices you have made, and to anyone watching who may be a Gold Star family who's lost a loved one serving our country. We want to thank you and honor you today for the sacrifice that you have made. And again, thank you so much for your time, Martin. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, man, for having me.
Once again, we would like to thank Martin for taking the time to visit with us. And we are praying for all of the families and all of the souls of those who lost their lives fighting for our freedoms. Now we have a fun show coming up for you all today. It's also National Foster Care Month. We're going to visit with Agape Ranch to learn more about how to help foster children in our own community. We also have some trivia for you, our Coastal Living Daily Challenge, and when we return, we're switching it up with a Monday episode of the Coastal Living Fishing Line with Captain John Little to learn about boat safety. Stay with us, we're just getting started on Coastal Living.
You're watching Coastal Living on KZTV, the only lifestyle show made in the Coastal Bend for the Coastal Bend.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.